The art of making pads is something that takes years, if not a lifetime, to perfect. When I first started out making ambient music, I was a preset junkie. Not that that's a bad thing, but I found myself on the endless quest to find that sound because I didn't know how to create that sound on my own. Presets were made from magical stardust, and I had to have more of them, at least find the right ones, to turn the musical dreams I had in my head into reality. Fast forward a few years after I started to gain some synth programming knowledge and skills, and I started reaching for an initialized patch more than I would go preset diving just to find the right timbre of pad or sound. While not as immediate or instantly inspiring as grabbing the latest pack of 75 ambient presets to hit the digital store shelves, I knew that ultimately rolling my own would be more rewarding and more enlightening if I took the time to learn how to create them myself. So what is it that creates a good pad sound? Is it the slow-moving warble of an underlying pitch movement? Is it the subtle motion of a filter contrasted with the creeping slope of an envelope? Or is it the deep and expansive void that gets created when delay meets reverb and your soul submerges itself in a tank of reflections and mirrors that ignites your soul into a million specks of particle matter and takes your mind into another time, another place, and another space entirely? Perhaps it's all of the above, and if you're familiar with this channel, you know that we dive into these topics in great detail. In today's video, I'm going to offer you 3 ways you can improve your pads so you can hopefully take your sound designs to the next level and ultimately build confidence in your own skills so you can begin to craft the sounds to help make your next musical project come to life. Before we start, as always, smash that like button and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you like this kind of video and you really want to learn more, check out my Patreon. There, you'll find tons of extra tutorials that you won't find on this channel, exclusive live streams, one-on-one ambient coaching, and so much more. By joining my Patreon, you're helping me to continue making tutorials just like this for many years to come. And finally, if you're looking for some new gear or a new synth like the Hydra synth above, be sure to visit the great folks at Perfect Circuit. Not only are you getting a great deal on our most items available immediately, but by using the affiliate links in the description, you're helping to support this channel as well. That being said, here are 3 ways to help you improve your ambient pads. All right, so here we are inside of Ableton Live 11. Now, the goal with today's video is to show you guys 3 different ways that you can level up your pads. You know, when it comes to pads and sound design, we pretty much all start in the same place. We all start with the default sawtooth waveform, and in the end, we all want to sound like Echo Season or Martin Sturzer. But the question is, how do we get there? And that's what I'm gonna hopefully help you guys with today, all right? So I have a backing track set up here, and in today's video, I'm going to be using Dune 3. Now, Dune 3 is an extremely powerful synthesizer, but I really wanna emphasize that you don't need Dune 3 to follow along this tutorial, and you don't need Dune 3 just to make good pads. However, it is a great option if you're looking for something that's extremely versatile and it sounds great and it's really low on the CPU. What we're gonna do here is I am going to start designing a pad, and then we're gonna talk about the different techniques that, again, you can apply to any synthesizer of your choice. So here's what the backing track sounds like. And here's the default sawtooth waveform. We all know what that sounds like, right? So how do we take that sound and really make it sound like it was always meant to be there, or it really supports this track? That's what we're gonna go over, all right? So, it's a nice 8 bars of that track. We'll get back to that in a second, all right? So now let's just start out with the basic ambient recipe here. We're gonna up the attack, up the decay, lower the sustain around 75%, which is our volume in this case, and then up the release, all right? So now we're left with this. Great, you know? That's a nice pad sound. We're also gonna give it some polyphony here to say 16, all right? So now we got enough voices, we're ready to rock and roll, all right? So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some unison. Now everyone knows that unison is multiple copies of the same waveform, and then when you detune it, it separates those waveforms by pitch and it sounds really cool. So that's a great way to start. I'm also gonna switch the unison mode to Gaussian here. And I'm gonna lower the detuning amount. Now we're left with this. And that sounds really cool, right? When I up the detuning ever so slightly. Now, one way you could actually do that inside of your pad is by using Aftertouch. Now, if you don't have a pressure sensitive keyboard, I'm gonna show you a way that you can kind of get by if you don't have a pressure sensitive keyboard. But if you do, check this out, modulate with Aftertouch. And we're going to come over here to the mod matrix and give it, I don't know, let's say 20, right? So now when I lay in the keys, I get a unison detune, which sounds really nice, right? It's a nice effect because it's really expressive. And maybe lowering the amount might be more appropriate here, but at least that subtle touch. And that's one of the tips that I have for you, is using Aftertouch in subtle ways to really level up your pads as far as the expressiveness goes. Anything that you can do to take a static default sawtooth and then really level it up, that's gonna help you, all right? So you can do that, and that's tip one, all right? How do we take this further though? Okay, let's lower the filter. All right, we got a 12 dB filter on here. That's cool, all right? We can also use Aftertouch on the filter itself. So let's try that. We're gonna right click on this filter here and we're gonna do Aftertouch again. So now, as I press in the keys, the filter opens up. Nice. Okay, that can be used in a subtle way. That's cool, all right? So using Aftertouch in creative ways to really sort of like bring out the expressiveness in your pads, that's a huge difference between something that's sort of like, you know, boring and static to something that's really leveled up. Now, you can take this even further. And if you don't have Aftertouch, here's one way you could also do this. You can take, say, an envelope, or in Dune's case, you can use an MSEG. And you can just start drawing in it an MSEG that sort of kind of ramps up like this, and you can kind of do the same thing. So if I was gonna take this MSEG right here, which stands for multi-segmented envelope generator, if you're gonna take this MSEG and you could just say, all right, well, MSEG 1 can just kind of go off one time and apply it to the same thing. So it can go to oscillator detune, and as that sort of increases, the ramp increases, it does the same thing, all right? You could also do this with a regular old envelope, okay? So we have Aftertouch now applied to detune and filter cutoff. Tip number 2 I have for you though, is using pitch vibrato. Pitch vibrato is a really, really great way to add some movement to your pad, especially when you talk about like adding it before delay or reverb, because once you do, if you don't have pitch vibrato there, it kind of sounds like, you know, the delay takes over. But when you add pitch vibrato, it really opens it up and it starts splitting itself and multiplying itself inside of the delays and the reverb, all right? So how do we do this? It's really easy. We're gonna come over here and we're gonna say, all right, let's now use LFO 1 to say oscillator 1's fine tune. Now that's an easy way to do it, right? Okay? But how do we say, okay, if we don't want this to happen, we only want this to happen when, say, we really press in the keys, like an actual vibrato would sound. How do we do that? So back here in the mod matrix, what we're gonna do is we're gonna select one of Dune 3's special auxiliary modulation sources, and that is LFO1 AT, which stands for Aftertouch. All right, we're gonna up the amount here, and then we're gonna control oscillator 1's fine pitch. All right, now what we're gonna do here is we're gonna set this up, LFO1, to control, I don't know, say like at 1/8, and it's just at a sine wave. Now, you could do this in other synthesizers, say like in Vital, you have auxiliary, Serum has this too. You also have modulation amount here inside of as a destination source. So you can say mod matrix modulation amount. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. But in terms of like this pitch vibrato thing, Dune 3's way of handling that with Aftertouch is this way. So when I lay in the keys, you can hear that now that LFO is now modulating the fine pitch ever so slightly. So if you combine all of that, then it's really starting to soar here. All right, now this is just one layer of Dune. We haven't even touched the second layer. We haven't even touched the parallel filters or anything. Speaking of parallel though, let's go on to tip number 3. Using parallel processing is the final tip that I wanted to give you guys. Parallel processing in Ableton is something that's extremely powerful, but I find that a lot of people don't really use it enough, or they don't know how to do it. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do it here right now. So if we were gonna put some effects on this, we could go tons of different routes, right? You could say, all right, well, let's use the effects inside of Dune 3. That's a good option. They're really powerful. You can run them sort of like in multiple different chains and stuff. That's cool. However, if you wanted to use external effects, we could also run, say, over here, I have all of my send effects. That's one way to run things in parallel. But what if you really wanted to get creative and specific, say with like the reverb or something? One cool way that you could do this is we can say, all right, let's run multiple reverbs on this patch right here, right? But let's do it in parallel using the audio effect rack inside of Ableton itself. Now, again, you might have a different way to do this in your own DAW, but check this out. So we're gonna run, say, let's use the stock reverb in Ableton, all right? So we're gonna run dry wet at 100%. Decay time is gonna be like, let's make this our massive one. This is gonna be super huge. We're gonna up the size a little bit here. And so now we've got a really dense reverb. If I hit any keys on this, it's gonna just sound like a wall of, reverb sound. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna group this. And by grouping it, it creates an audio effect rack. Cool. Now I have a chain here, and that chain says, I'm sending all of this signal into this. Now, what if you create a blank chain down here? Now I have a separate chain, which I'm going to call dry. So now I have a dry chain and a wet chain. Cool. This is great because now I can create as many chains as I want and still have that dry signal intact. That's really important. So I can also mix these with these volume knobs right here. So now check this out. Let's add a third reverb before we get really crazy here. And in this chain, we're gonna add, say, the Pro R from FabFilter. And we're gonna give it, say, one of the really large reverbs in here called Eternity. Now we have Eternity, we have our custom one here, we have this. Let's add some delay here from Timeless 3, and we're gonna hit play here. Now check out what this sounds like now. See, we still have that dry signal. And that's what's amazing, is we still have all of the work that we did, but now it's running to multiple different reverbs, all in parallel. That's gorgeous. Nice. So you can also, the other thing we didn't even touch was using your synthesizer as sort of a parallel processor in itself by using multiple different layers. This is sort of a bonus tip for you. So I mentioned to you that Dune has 8 different layers. The differential unison engine is extremely powerful. We've only used one of the layers. Let's add either another oscillator or another layer. Let's add another layer entirely. So we're gonna say now we're going for 2 layers. I'm going to solo layer 2, and now we have a fresh start here. I'm going to add a whole nother layer and process it a completely different way. So let's now make this, say, I don't know, we'll make it a wavetable, and we'll make it a square wave, and we'll lower the amount here. Okay. There we go. Let's detune this. Let's make it like, a whole octave down. That's cool. We'll do some different filtering here. Oh yeah. All right. So I can completely affect this layer in a different way using Dune. Maybe I can make it have the separate effects lane. I can compress it using effects too. But I could affect this in a different way and then mix all of that together. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to, all right, let's add some little low end here. We're gonna add some low end to it. This is gonna be effects 2. There we go. Take some of the high end out. Over the attack. Up the output. There we go. Cool. And now all I have to do is unsolo voice number 2. And now we have this together. Right? And there's our pad. Wow. So it's thinking about this in a way that, you know, the possibilities are really infinite here. You could go so many different directions with this. And that's the secret that kind of unlocked all of this stuff for me. It was like saying, it's all about the subtle touches. It doesn't have to necessarily be the craziest wavetable. It doesn't have to be the craziest granular processor. Like, even the subtle things and building really tasteful and deep and lush sounds out of simple materials and simple waveforms, that's the secret that unlocked pads and sound design for me, is I realized that I don't have to have the latest and the greatest gear. I don't have to have the craziest amount of modulation routings. It doesn't have to be much, but if I thoughtfully and carefully use these things in a way that really sort of enhance the qualities, the natural qualities of the synthesizer itself, that's what's gonna take it to the next level. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this was useful for you. And I think we're just at the beginning here. Like, there's so many other like subtopics that we can take off this one thing. Just like how to level up your pads. Where do we go from here? My name is Chris from Signs of Life. If you guys want to learn more, be sure to check out my Patreon. Tons of extra tutorials on there, specifically on pads. Lots of presets for Vitals, Serum, Omnisphere, Dune 3. The Science Circle, we just had our meeting yesterday. It was absolutely amazing. One-on-one ambient coaching and tons more. Check it out. Link is down below. You can join for as little as $3 a month. I'm gonna sit here and just keep jamming. But as always, keep your heads in the clouds and your feet planted firmly on the ground. Thank you again for watching. My name is Chris from Signs of Life, and I'll see you all in the next one.